Texas coast, horrifying. 36 bodies were discovered inside the hull of a fishing vessel, along with disturbing truths at the border. Imagine a regular fishing boat drifting across Gulf waters. But when federal officers inspected its hold, what they found froze them in terror. 36 human corpses stacked together in the dark. Who were these people? How did they end up trapped there? And what secrets were being concealed at the border? This is a chilling story that forces us to open our eyes. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next real-life mystery and shocking truth. At dawn on August 15, 2019, the skies above Galveston Bay were still veiled in thin summer fog. A salty breeze drifted in from the Gulf of Mexico, mingling with the heavy diesel odor of moored boats. In the distance, Galveston's harbor lights flickered faintly, unwilling to sleep though the night was deep. In that silence, an aging fishing boat crawled forward sluggishly. Its blue paint was peeling, registration numbers barely legible. From the outside, it seemed ordinary, just another boat heading toward international waters. But for the U.S. Coast Guard patrol running routine checks, this vessel carried a secret. The captain, a thin man named Samuel Barnes, looked uneasy when the searchlight cut across his face. Sweat rolled down his temple though the air was cool. His eyes darted nervously, his voice cracked when he answered questions. "Just frozen fish, sir." "Gotta hurry before it spoils," he insisted, pointing toward the hold. But the officer's instincts told them something was off. A senior officer motioned to open the hatch. Samuel resisted, begging them not to expose the cargo, claiming the fish would rot. But the order had already been given. 2 Coast Guardsmen climbed aboard, pulled the rusted lever and forced open the sealed hatch. A blast of icy air escaped, prickling their skin. But what followed wasn't the smell of fish, it was the suffocating stench of death. Flashlights cut through the mist. The beams pierced the frozen fog inside the hold, revealing a nightmare no one present would ever forget. 36 lifeless bodies piled together. Pale faces, some with eyes shut, others half open as if caught mid-scream. Their frail frames pressed against each other in silence. Thin clothing clung to skin already blue from the cold. Some officers covered their mouths, struggling not to retch. Others stood frozen, hands shaking. Only the soft slap of waves broke the silence, as though the sea itself mourned. That night, Galveston Pier was no longer just a docking place for fishermen. It became a witness to one of America's most horrifying human trafficking tragedies. This was no routine patrol, it was the start of a major investigation exposing an international crime network. Emergency signals went out, the scene locked down, and the boat secured. Reports raced to Washington within minutes. Behind the stern faces of officers was grief too heavy to voice. Who were they? 36 souls, frozen in the hold of a fishing boat. Where had they come from? How had they been tricked into this journey of death? Questions hung in the humid night, unanswered. But one thing was certain. This nightmare marked the beginning of Operation Horizon 819. A race against time to uncover the shadows of human trafficking. And so the story began. Galveston Pier stood heavy with silence, the old boat now secured under armed guard. Yellow tape wrapped its edges, transforming it from a vessel into a crime scene. Forensic teams arrived, carrying gloves, cameras, and body bags. The sea breeze mixed with the acrid odor spilling from the hold. Breathing grew difficult. One by one, the bodies were lifted and laid on white sheets stretched across the dock. 36 souls now silent forever. Their faces were young, many looked barely out of high school. Thin t-shirts, worn jeans, cheap sneakers. These were the final traces of their short journeys. A forensic doctor examined them with a small light. Severely malnourished. Old bruises too, signs of beatings, he muttered. His colleague nodded grimly. The freezing hold wasn't the beginning of their suffering, it was only the end. Cameras clicked, echoing across the pier. Some younger officers turned away, unable to look. Others discreetly brushed tears from their eyes. At the edge of the pier, a local woman rushed in after hearing of bodies discovered. Eyes wet, she scanned the white sheets. Then she cried out, "That's my son's shirt." Her voice cracked as neighbors caught her collapsing frame. No confirmation yet, but a mother's anguish deepened the sorrow. Meanwhile, Captain Samuel Barnes sat chained to a steel chair. He was an old fisherman from a small coastal town, buried in debt to loan sharks. When offered $700 to deliver frozen cargo, he accepted without hesitation. Now, pale and shaking, he stammered, "I didn't know. I swear I was told it was only fish." But his trembling hands and downcast eyes revealed otherwise. A senior officer pressed him coldly. If it was just fish, why did you fight so hard to stop us from opening the hatch? Samuel bit his lip and stayed silent. Through the night, forensic teams numbered each body, recorded details, and documented the evidence. The pier became an open morgue, dim yellow lights reflecting on the black water. And then, a small but vital discovery. From one victim's pocket, an investigator pulled out a plastic bag containing a scrap of paper. It was a makeshift job contract stamped with the faded logo of Bright Star Talent Agency. It promised work as singers, dancers, entertainers abroad, high pay, free housing. But no real address, only a phone number and a forged signature. Investigators exchanged grim looks. That piece of paper was a lifeline to the truth. The evidence was sealed, reports typed, and within minutes the update reached Washington. 36 dead in a fishing boat's hold, linked to a fraudulent recruitment scheme. That night on Galveston Pier, everyone present knew this was only the beginning of a massive case. Federal agents ordered a special task force to trace who stood behind Bright Star Talent Agency. From that single scrap of paper began the long pursuit into the dark heart of human trafficking. Her palms rested on her lap, damp with sweat, though her face still carried a timid smile. Moments later, a man walked in. Medium build, slick back hair, thin shirt. His grin looked friendly, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. This was Richard Hale. "You must be Anna?" he asked, sliding into the seat. "Yes, sir," Anna answered softly. Richard studied her carefully, scanning from head to toe as though judging if she could pass for the role he had in mind. He spoke, not with flashy promises but with a slicker story. "You know Rachel, right? A girl from out west. She joined me just 3 months ago. Now she sends thousands home every month. Don't you want that too?" His voice lowered, leaning closer. Anna dropped her gaze, pretending to be impressed. "If that's true, yes. I want it. What do I need to do?" Richard smirked. "Simple. Give me your photo ID, come with me tonight. There are other candidates at the house too. By the day after tomorrow you'll already be working." Every word was being recorded by the tiny microphone hidden in Anna's collar. Outside the cafe, the surveillance team scribbled notes, listening to every detail. The meeting stretched nearly an hour. Richard looked more and more convinced. Before leaving, he pulled out his phone and sent a short message to a strange number. Anna caught a glimpse. Just one line, "New recruit ready tonight." That alone made the agent's hearts pound faster. Richard stood, patted Anna's shoulder. "Don't be late, okay? Tonight's the start of your new life." He walked calmly out of the cafe, unaware dozens of eyes were tracking him. In the control van, Agent Aaron Sanders clenched his fist. "Stay on him. Don't let him slip. Tonight we'll see who's behind him." The operation had just entered its riskiest stage. The bait was taken and the net was tightening. That afternoon, Richard Hale strolled casually after leaving the cafe. He glanced at his phone now and then, fingers busy typing. He never realized shadows trailed his every step. 2 plainclothes agents followed at a steady distance, while an unmarked SUV crawled the opposite street. All communication streamed into the control room through earpieces. Commissioner Sanders led the operation directly. "Targets heading to the boarding house. All units, hold position," an agent whispered over the radio. Richard turned down a narrow alley and stopped before an old boarding house. Paint peeled from the walls, the wooden door creaked as it opened. 2 young men appeared to greet him. Their faces were harsh, eyes suspicious. One clutched a black backpack. The 3 disappeared into a back room. Target inside. 2 associates with him, a scout relayed. Sanders raised his hand. "Hold. Wait for activity." Minutes passed until muffled voices drifted through the cracked window. "The documents are ready. The boat leaves tonight. The recruits secured." That was enough. Sanders lifted his fist. "Move in." The door was kicked open. Federal agents. "Don't move." Chaos erupted instantly. Richard jolted, snatching the laptop from the table, trying to smash it. One accomplice drew a knife. Another lunged for the bag of papers. But the agents were quicker. 2 officers wrestled down the knife wielder. Another seized the bag from Richard's partner. Richard himself dashed toward the window, but a powerful hand yanked his collar, slamming him against the wall. Handcuffs snapped around his wrists. Within seconds, the cramped room was under control. 3 men lay on the floor, cuffed, faces pale with fury. The search began, and what they uncovered stunned everyone. Beneath the bed sat 3 laptops. One screen still glowed with an unsent email, subject line, "Shipment tonight." On the table lay scattered SIM cards, some still sealed. Two phones overflowed with contacts, mostly codes and initials. Inside the closet, agents pulled out thick envelopes of cash, dollars and foreign bills. In the black backpack, transaction logs listed names, amounts, and scribbled notes marked paid or waiting for transport. An IT analyst quickly dove into the live laptop. "Sir, this email just went out overseas. Sent from here to accounts in Mexico and the Caribbean. Sender, Richard. Recipient, initials LK." That name stuck instantly. "LK," Sanders muttered, narrowing his eyes. In the interrogation room, Richard sat cuffed, smirking. "You think you've won?" he sneered. "I'm nothing. Even without me, the boat sails tonight. My boss is bigger than you can imagine." Investigators laid the evidence on the table: laptops, SIM cards, wads of cash. Richard only chuckled. "Means nothing. Tomorrow someone else takes my place. You can't stop it." But his eyes flickered nervously when one question came: "Who is LK?" Richard turned away in silence. Behind the one-way glass, Sanders sighed. He knew Richard wouldn't talk yet, but the email was enough. That name LK was the next lead. That night, the shabby boarding house on the Texas coast became the site of a recruiter's fall. From outside, it looked quiet and forgotten. But inside, the team had uncovered a crucial key. Whoever LK was, they were the next target. And from the digital trail and money logs, all signs pointed south. The operation wasn't finished. But one thing was certain: the net was tightening, and the next circle of the syndicate was finally coming into view. Outside, a relentless downpour hammered the docks, the roar of rain on metal rooftops echoing like rolling thunder. It felt as though the heavens themselves warned of a greater storm ahead. After Clara Matthews' startling confession, the case was no longer shrouded in uncertainty. Their next destination was clear: Savannah, Georgia. The names Andrew Collins and Richard Kane were no longer whispers, but marked targets. Commissioner Aaron Sanders immediately relayed the update to Washington. Within hours, orders came down. U.S. authorities had to coordinate with Georgia State Police to dismantle the trafficking network. 2 days later, Aaron and a tactical unit touched down in Savannah. The city shimmered with neon and headlights, its waterfront alive with commerce. Yet beneath the charm, Aaron knew something sinister was buried. A closed-door meeting unfolded at the Savannah Police Department, a room stacked with satellite imagery, maps, and intelligence briefs. Superintendent David Monroe, a hardened man in his 50s, greeted them with a piercing stare. His presence commanded respect, but his eyes burned with the scars of old battles. "Richard Kane isn't new to us," Monroe began, voice heavy with grit. "We've chased him for years, but he always slipped away, protected by powerful hands. I lost 2 of my men in a raid gone wrong 5 years ago. I swore then I'd never fail again." His vow silenced the room. Aaron studied Monroe, recognizing the same drive, the same grief, the same hunger for justice. The intelligence was clear. Andrew Collins handled logistics and forged documents, while Richard Kane masterminded everything from a lavish villa just outside Savannah. But before they could reach him, there was a critical target. "A warehouse near the harbor," Monroe said, pointing at the map. "That's where the victims are held before being shipped. It's the heart of their operation. If we hit it, we don't just free those people, we choke Kane's pipeline." Aaron nodded grimly. But secrecy was everything. Even the slightest leak could doom the captives inside. The discussion stretched late, debating not just tactics but how to stay invisible. The verdict: a silent strike. No sirens. No uniforms. "We'll use encrypted comms only," Monroe added. "We also have a team on the water. No vessel leaves the harbor. If Kane tries to run, we cut him off." His voice carried steel, his face taut with resolve. The briefing room thickened with tension. This was no routine bust. It was a gamble between agencies, between nations. Everyone knew a single mistake could unravel everything. Aaron stood before dispersing, his words steady but heavy with weight. "The victims are priority one. Don't let Kane use them as shields. Once they're safe, we take down Collins and Kane. They've exploited human lives long enough." Near midnight, the convoy rolled through Savannah's empty streets, headlights off. The salty air carried the damp scent of the sea. From a distance, the small harbor looked lifeless, lit only by a few flickering lamps. At the dock, U.S. Coast Guard units waited with inflatable boats. Across the water, undercover officers blended with late-night dockhands, inching toward the warehouse. Silence cloaked the mission, broken only by waves lapping against wood. At exactly 2 a.m., the radio crackled, Monroe's voice firm: "All units, hold position. Wait for the signal." Shadows of armed guards paced near the building. One paused, phone pressed to his ear, his face tightening, eyes scanning nervously. Watching from cover, Aaron felt his chest tighten. Kane might already know. Savannah's night held its breath. The old warehouse loomed, rusted tin walls, dim bulbs swaying. Inside, however, it pulsed with guarded tension. Surveillance cameras dotted the corners, guards gripping weapons tighter. From their vantage, Aaron and Monroe steadied themselves. "We've waited for this," Monroe muttered. Then the signal came. Power was cut, plunging the building into darkness. Chaos erupted inside, shouts, scrambling feet. That was their moment. The entry teams smashed through the iron doors, storming in. But the traffickers were ready. Gunfire erupted, sparks ricocheting off metal walls. Screams of captives cut through the storm of bullets. Aaron ducked behind cover, signaling his men. 2 agents hurled flash grenades. Blinding white bursts froze the gunmen, who dropped fast. Some collapsed, others surrendered. The team pressed deeper into the warehouse. Then came the sight that made hearts ache. Dozens of people huddled on the filthy floor, frail, trembling, eyes hollow. Some sobbed at the sight of badges, others crawled forward, whispering through cracked voices, "Please, don't let them take us again." Medics rushed in, handing out water, blankets, lifting those too weak to stand. Relief and tears filled the room. Aaron's throat tightened, recalling the dozens of lives already lost. At least tonight they had saved some. But the mission wasn't over. A commotion erupted at the back. A tall man darted down a corridor. Aaron recognized him instantly, Andrew Collins. The trafficker tried to blend in with the captives, but guilt burned in his eyes. "Stop, Andrew," Aaron barked. Collins smirked, raising his hands mockingly. "We can make a deal. I've got money, name your price." Aaron stepped closer, shoving his hands aside. "Human lives aren't for sale." Agents tackled Collins, slamming him down, snapping cuffs around his wrists. Red-faced, he spat venom. "You'll never touch Kane. Savannah belongs to him." Upstairs, officers found a small office. A computer screen glowed with a fresh message. "If you dare, come to my villa. I'll be waiting." Aaron stared at the words, jaw tight. Kane wasn't running, he was taunting them. This wasn't retreat. It was an invitation to war. Outside, as victims were evacuated and Collins hauled away, Aaron stood in the rain-soaked night, relief battling fury. Dozens had been saved, but Kane had slipped through again. Monroe placed a hand on his shoulder. "We won tonight. But tomorrow, the real fight begins." Aaron lifted his gaze toward the villa silhouetted on the distant hill. He knew that's where the final battle awaited. One of the officers was struck, his body crashing to the ground. Though still alive, his pain reminded everyone that this house was Kane's chessboard. The tech team shouted warnings in panic. From across the room, Richard Kane let out a short, mocking laugh. "You fools think you can beat me in a fortress I built myself?" He lifted his pistol and fired at David Monroe. The shot whistled past, missing by inches, shattering a glass panel behind him. Monroe's face twisted red with fury. "This is for my men." His gun roared, striking Kane in the arm. The weapon clattered to the floor, but Kane wasn't finished. With lightning speed, he snatched a knife from the table and lunged. A brutal struggle erupted. Aaron Sanders grappled with Kane, wrestling fiercely. The blade skimmed dangerously close to Monroe's neck, but was knocked aside at the last second. In the chaos, Aaron drove his boot into Kane's chest, knocking him down hard. 2 agents rushed in, restraining him with steel cuffs. Kane snarled like a trapped animal, his eyes blazing. "You think locking me up changes anything? There are 1,000 Kanes out there. You'll never stop them all." Aaron glared down at him, voice sharp. "Maybe so. But tonight, you're not one of them." Silence blanketed the room, broken only by radios crackling with updates. The villa grounds were secure. Kane sat cuffed on the floor, his defiance intact though his defeat was written all over him. Monroe stood, chest heaving, eyes shimmering with long-buried grief. "I waited 5 years for this moment. At last, justice breathes." Aaron said nothing, his gaze fixed out the villa's wide window. Dawn crept over Savannah's horizon, streaking the sky in soft pink. Aaron knew this victory was only a chapter. Kane was in custody, but countless networks still thrived, countless victims still trapped. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. The Grand Villa stood silent now, its kingpin finally dethroned. Months later, the courthouse in Atlanta was packed to the brim. Victims' families, reporters, and human rights advocates filled the benches. In the defendant's chair sat Richard Kane, his face cold, wrists shackled. Beside him, Andrew Collins fidgeted nervously, pale and restless. The judge read a litany of charges: human trafficking, unlawful imprisonment, exploitation, torture, and indirect murder of dozens. Each word struck like a hammer, reminding the room of the horrors. Survivors sat side by side. Some bowed their heads, others gripped each other's hands for strength. A young man of 20 took the stand. His voice shook. "We were promised jobs, but all we got were chains and hunger. Many of my friends didn't make it out alive. Tonight, I speak for those who can't." Silence fell heavy. In the back row, grieving parents clutched photos of their children, eyes swollen with tears. Some whispered prayers. Everyone knew no sentence could bring back the dead, but justice meant their suffering would not be ignored. Finally, the gavel fell. Richard Kane sentenced to life without parole. Andrew Collins and other captured accomplices received decades-long sentences. The moment the verdict was read, sobs, prayers, and cries of relief filled the courtroom. Outside, Aaron stood beside Monroe. Neither wore triumph, only weary relief. 36 lives lost, Aaron murmured. No ruling can return them. Monroe's voice was gravel, heavy with meaning. True. But this ruling can protect others. That's enough to know they didn't die in vain. Under the soft Atlanta sun, survivors slowly began rebuilding. Some returned to school. Others found honest work. Yet their scars would always whisper of what was stolen, a reminder that freedom is never free. This chapter closed, but the story revealed a greater truth. Trafficking isn't just a crime, it's a wound on humanity. Promises of wealth, easy jobs, glittering dreams, they can all be deadly snares. From behind the screen, a narrator's voice echoed, "No promise of gold is worth more than a single life." This tragedy warns us, protect your loved ones, your children, your neighbors from traps disguised as opportunity. Justice may come late, but the fight against this evil can never stop. Because behind every statistic there's a face, a name, a dream stolen. Richard Kane's story ends behind bars. But the voices of the 36 souls live on, never again. Let their suffering be a warning to us all. High-paying offers that sound too easy are often nothing but bait leading to chains. Stay vigilant. Remind your families and friends, never trade dignity for empty promises. Treasure your life. Treasure your future. And never let deception steal it from you. May we live honestly, work hard, and guard one another from the evil of human trafficking.